You know, the U.S. economy has always had pretty significant impacts on the property casualty insurance marketplace, and there's nothing different about that today, and there'll be nothing different about that in 2024. So the big question on many people's mind is, will there be a recession over the next year or so? And so there's a very slight consensus in favor of a very mild recession in the first half or in the middle of 2024. Now, historically, what that would mean is that there would be a modest slowdown in terms of organic premium growth in, say, property-sensitive lines and even to some extent some commercial lines like workers' comp, which are affected by payroll. But given that the economy overall is not expected to fall off a cliff, that a recession such as the one is being predicted would not be accompanied by mass layoffs causing an adverse impact on payroll, we really wouldn't expect to see much of an impact on the P&C insurance industry overall. The larger impact is likely to be on the investment markets, where there'll be a lot of questions on Wall Street about how high will the Federal Reserve keep interest rates and for how long, and when it will begin to lower rates and how quickly. That's going to be a dominant issue next year. Well, the reinsurance market globally, not just in the United States, particularly in the property catastrophe part of the market, has been hard. I mean, renewals as of January 1st, 2023 were up about 30%. Over an 18-month period ending July 1st of this year, up about 35%. And that's about the sixth year in a row of increase, which is, we really haven't seen anything like that since either the post-Andrew period and to some extent post-9/11 period. It's very unusual, actually. But this has been propelled by a couple of forces: record or near record catastrophe losses on a global scale, some dislocation of capital associated with the fact that not only do we have high losses, which consume some of that capital, but lower asset values have diminished overall surplus and industry capacity around the world. And of course, inflation has been an issue in many countries, especially in the United States, which is the largest reinsurance market on the planet, and to some other degree, places like Great Britain as well. The expectations for 2024 is continued hard market conditions, if you will, in the property catastrophe reinsurance marketplace for next year, but at a somewhat bit more of a modest pace. So we might not expect to see a 30% year-over-year increase, maybe something in the order of 15 or 20%. That's still a lot, but that's a material decrease from the prior year. Well, at any given time, the U.S. property casualty insurance industry is being buffeted by a variety of forces. You know, the economy is one of them. Politics is another one. 2024, of course, is a political year. But one of the other major forces impacting the industry, and it's one that's a challenge that's been with us before, is tort abuse, abuse of the legal system. And that is driving up claim severities in a way higher than just about anything other than catastrophe losses. But it's affecting, obviously, the casualty lines or the casualty components of lines like commercial auto in particular. You can also see some other areas like medical malpractice, but general liability. And so this is a very, very challenging issue for P&C insurers, because whereas we can do quite a bit to control, in effect, loss control in terms of such things as, let's say, commercial vehicle losses. The trial bar in the United States is probably the best funded, best organized special interest group in the entire country. And you can't go anywhere without seeing a billboard or seeing an ad from trial lawyers. You know, whether it's your personal vehicle or it's sue over some sort of medical related issue or somebody in a nursing home or a truck accident, whatever it is. This is an issue for which we need partners in many, many different industries. The industry's trying to make some headway in a few issues. For instance, the issue of what's called third-party litigation funding is an important thing, whereby you can actually invest in lawsuits. You can put money into law firms that are suing companies and expect a return off of that. That at a minimum, that judges and juries should be aware of that before the case ever begins, because you can see that how a jury might feel somewhat more concerned to understand that there are investors out there who are trying to profit off of someone else's loss. And so at a minimum, that would be a first step. Well, you know, 2024 is an election year, and every election year is a kind of a momentous occasion for every industry, and ours is no different. we're going to be concerned about a number of things. No doubt, mostly related to the regulatory environment. So how the regulatory environment might change under either a continuation of the current administration or the old administration coming back. And we also don't know what the composition of Congress might be. Would it be a Congress that's amenable to tort reforms that could potentially help rein in some of the legal problems and the abuse of the legal systems we're seeing around the country, at least in the federal court system? Another dimension to it is what is likely to happen, say, with monetary policy at the Federal Reserve. There's absolutely no question the economy is going to be one of the top one or two, certainly probably the number one issue in the election next year. And that's going to involve a lot of job owning of the Fed and probably with some parties urging them to reduce rates faster than otherwise might be the case. Would that ultimately lead to a resurgence of inflation, for instance, which has been very painful for this industry? This industry wants to see inflation brought under control. It is not our friend. It's not our friend today. It wasn't our friend in the 1970s or the 1980s. It was a painful period for the industry, just as it is today. So I think that when we're talking about tort reform and when we're talking about policies that affect inflation, which lead directly to claim severities, that affect claim severities directly, I'd say those are kind of number one and number two issues at the federal level that are affecting this industry. Of course, there are going to be a lot of state-related elections, insurance commissioners, legislators, which there are, so many of those I couldn't even begin to discuss at this point.